In the silence of deep space, Commander Elias Kane drifted inside his capsule, staring at the endless black ocean beyond the glass. Stars glimmered like cold, distant eyes, and his radio was filled with nothing but static. He had been sent on a classified mission, one that even his closest crew didn't fully understand. The only instruction he had been given was, "Follow the signal. Do not deviate." The signal was faint, a pulsing rhythm that seemed almost alive. Every time Elias adjusted the course of his spacecraft, the pulse grew stronger, more insistent, like a heartbeat echoing through the void. But something wasn't right. Instruments flickered, without reason. Strange shadows crossed the cabin even though there was no source of light. And sometimes, when Elias closed his eyes, he swore he could hear whispers, low voices speaking in a language no human tongue could form. The further he traveled, the more the darkness outside seemed to press against the glass, as if trying to seep in. And then, on the seventh day, he saw it, a structure. Floating among the stars was something massive, ancient, and not built by human hands. It resembled a fortress of twisted metal and stone, impossibly large, its surface covered in strange markings that glowed faintly like embers. The signal was coming from inside. His breathing quickened, his pulse raced. Part of him screamed to turn back, to forget the mission. But the other part, the stronger part, needed to know what was waiting for him inside. With trembling hands, Elias guided the craft closer. As he approached, the lights on the structure began to shift, as if reacting to his presence. And then, the signal stopped. The silence was absolute, suffocating. Elias floated in orbit around the alien fortress, staring at its surface, when suddenly,
the silence was unbearable. Elias swallowed hard and initiated docking procedures. The clamps hissed against the alien hull, but it was not metal as he expected. It felt alive, vibrating faintly under his ship. His hands shook as he put on the EVA suit. Before stepping out, he checked the oxygen levels, the tether, the communication link. Everything showed green, yet a voice inside whispered, "Don't go." He ignored it. The airlock opened with a metallic groan, and Elias floated toward the alien surface. Up close, the markings glowed brighter, shifting patterns like veins of fire under skin. They weren't symbols. They were moving. He touched the wall. Instantly, his helmet display flickered. A burst of static filled his ears. Then words. Not English, not any Earth language, but his brain understood them all the same. "Welcome back." Elias froze. His breath fogged the visor. Back? He had never been here before. A seam opened in the alien wall, pulling apart as if the structure itself were breathing. A tunnel formed, lined with glowing veins of light. The air inside shimmered faintly, though his scanners insisted there was no oxygen, no atmosphere. The signal returned, louder now, booming in his skull instead of through his equipment. The tunnel seemed to pulse with it, like the beat of a colossal heart. Against every survival instinct, Elias drifted forward, drawn in by an unseen force. The deeper he went, the more the whispers multiplied, voices layered over voices, thousands of them, whispering his name. And then he saw them. Figures, shadowy humanoid forms etched into the walls themselves, as if thousands of beings had been frozen mid-scream inside the structure. Their eyes glowed faintly, following him as he floated deeper. His radio crackled, just for a second. It was ground control. Or, at least, it sounded like them. "Commander Kane, we see you. Keep going. Don't be afraid." But Elias hadn't sent any transmission, and he was far, far beyond the range of Earth's communication. The shadows began to shift. Slowly, agonizingly, the frozen figures peeled themselves out of the walls, and they were moving toward him.
Elias's heartbeat thundered in his ears as the shadowed figures stepped free from the walls. Their movements were unnatural, too slow, too deliberate, as though every motion was being pulled by invisible strings. Their faces were featureless voids, yet he felt their eyes boring into him, piercing straight through the helmet, straight into his mind. The voices in his head grew louder, overlapping whispers crashing together into something like a chorus. His name repeated again and again, echoing in countless tones. Some soft, some furious, some begging. Elias, Elias, Elias. He tried to back away, fumbling with the thruster controls on his suit. But the tunnel behind him had closed. The alien structure had sealed him in. Then one of the beings reached out. Its arm dissolved into tendrils of black smoke that coiled toward him like serpents. When they brushed his suit, the oxygen gauge spiked wildly, alarms shrieking inside his helmet. Elias thrashed, shouting into the void, "Get away from me!" But the shadows didn't stop. Instead, they parted, opening a path deeper into the fortress. And from that path, a blinding white glow erupted. The whispers fell silent. Elias floated, trembling, caught between the suffocating blackness of the creatures and the searing light ahead. For one terrible second, the light shifted, and he saw something inside it. Not a figure, not a machine, a throne, and something was sitting on it. The shadows began to bow, their heads lowering toward the throne as though in reverence. Elias's stomach lurched. The white glow pulsed once, like a command, and against his will, his body started drifting forward.
Elias's limbs trembled as his suit thrusters sputtered uselessly. No matter how he fought, his body drifted forward, pulled like a puppet toward the throne. The closer he came, the more the glow dimmed, revealing fragments of what sat within it. At first, it looked human, a man's silhouette, upright and regal, hands resting on the armrests. But as the light peeled away, the details twisted into something grotesque. Its skin shimmered like metal, it seemed to pulse like flesh. Its face, if it could be called that, shifted constantly, cycling through features Elias recognized, his commander, his mother, his own reflection. And then, it stopped. The face it chose was his. Elias's breath caught in his throat. The thing on the throne opened its eyes, two burning voids, endless and bottomless, locked on him. And when it spoke, the sound wasn't carried by air or comms, it was inside his skull, vibrating through bone and blood. "You have returned, at last." Elias's thoughts raced. "No, this isn't real. I've never been here. I'm on a mission, classified. This is just hallucination." But the creature smiled with his own mouth, mirroring every twitch of fear. "You don't remember, but we remember you." The shadow figures sank to their knees, their whispers now a chant rising in unison. The walls pulsed with their rhythm, the fortress alive with devotion. Elias tried to scream, but no sound escaped. His body moved forward until he was floating just a few feet from the throne. The creature extended his hand. "Sit." The throne's surface rippled like liquid metal, reshaping itself as if it was waiting for him. The pull grew stronger, dragging him closer, closer. And then, for a split second, his comms cracked with a new voice, a voice desperate, human, filled with static and terror. "Elias, don't sit! It's a trap! Get out, now!" The throne pulsed, the figure snarled, and the comms cut instantly. Elias's heart pounded so violently it felt like his chest might burst. The throne's pull tightened, dragging him inch by inch toward the figure that wore his face. His thrusters roared as he fired them in desperation, but the force barely slowed him. The shadow's chanting grew deafening, their faceless heads tilted back in worship. The air, or whatever passed for it here, vibrated with their devotion. The figure leaned forward, hand outstretched, voice dripping with command. "Accept what you are." Elias's mind screamed, "No!" He clenched his jaw and diverted every ounce of power in his suit to the thrusters. Warning lights flashed red, circuits burned hot, the metal under his gloves trembled. For the first time the pull weakened, just slightly. The creature's smile twisted into rage. The shadows hissed, their chant breaking into a storm of shrieks. Elias spun, searching for any escape, and then he saw it. High above the throne, where the walls curved into darkness, a jagged tear in the alien's surface. It pulsed with faint starlight, a possible way out. He aimed his thrusters and fired, shooting upward. The fortress roared in response, the walls warping like flesh, tendrils lashing out to grab him. One coiled around his leg, another around his arm. His oxygen levels plummeted as alarms screamed in his ears. The creature's voice thundered through the chamber. "You cannot escape yourself, Elias." With a final desperate cry, he ripped free, tearing cables from his suit as sparks erupted. His body shot upward toward the tear. The shadows wailed below, the throne's figure rising in fury. And then, he was through. The world exploded in white light. He tumbled end over end, weightless, blind, until at last the glow faded. He blinked rapidly, lungs heaving, and froze. Outside the tear wasn't open space. It was another chamber, vast, endless, and lined with thousands of thrones, and every single one was occupied by him.
Elias's scream caught in his throat as his eyes darted across the chamber. Row after row, throne after throne, thousands of versions of himself stared back, some older, some younger, some twisted into monstrous shapes. Each one sat in silence, their eyes burning with the same void as the figure he had just escaped. He floated helplessly, the weight of realization crushing him. This fortress wasn't just a construct, it was a prison, a cycle, and he was already part of it. The nearest Elias on a throne leaned forward, its face splitting into a grin. Then another followed, and another. Soon the entire chamber echoed with the sound of his own voice, multiplied 1,000 times over. "Sit, sit, sit." The pull returned, stronger than ever, yanking him toward an empty throne at the center of the chamber. His thrusters sputtered, dead. His oxygen levels plummeted into the red. He fought, clawed at the void, but it was useless. The throne embraced him, metal and flesh binding around his body like chains. As his helmet display flickered for the last time, Elias saw the truth. Every version of himself wasn't just a copy, they were him. Every failed attempt, every escape, every choice that ended the same way. The cycle had no end. The figure's voice whispered one final time, soft and certain, "Welcome home," and darkness swallowed him whole. The end.